Hello, welcome back to the Podbook. In this chapter, I want to start with a little story that always makes me smile when I remember it, and it's pertinent to what I want to discuss later on. I was on a train, and a young man came and sat by my side, and he was very talkative, a delightful young chap. And I asked him about his life and his hopes and his challenges, and we talked at some length. And eventually, he turned to me and said, well, what do you do? And I just said, well, I write books. And of course, he asked, what do you write books on? And I felt like the easiest way to answer it would be simply to say, well, I write books on the great mysteries of existence, because being alive is a pretty mysterious business, isn't it? To which he said, is it? Which kind of caught me by surprise. So I enlarged and said, well, you know that we're alive, we're born, we're heading for death, we don't know what to do with life, we don't know what it is, we don't really know what we are. We have to work all that out. And he looked at me puzzled and said, do we? So I thought I'll use some examples from science to see if I can open up this sense of the mystery, from the mysterious. So I said, well, you know, like scientists have discovered, if you take a speck of the dark night sky where it looks like there's nothing, and you train a telescope on it, there are galaxies, many galaxies there, each galaxy full of billions of stars. I mean, that's pretty mysterious, isn't it? What's that about? And I could tell that he wasn't that impressed or even interested, really. So I went the other way and said, and the other thing that really gets me is solid matter, like our very bodies. If you go right into it, it disappears. And on the atomic level, it's 99.9999999, lots and lots of nines, empty space. This is nearly all empty. And yet, there it is, really solid flesh. Strange, huh? Yeah, you could just see he was beginning to feel this was getting to be a strange conversation. And then I tried my favorite, which was just to go, and another thing we've discovered is that human beings, you and me, we're descended from fish. Now he was beginning to look a bit worried. So I thought I'd soften it off and go for a more spiritual angle and said, well, have you ever had that experience where you're going about your life, you think you know who you are and what's going on, and then, boom, something happens and you feel like, oh, there's more to life. There's a kind of magic to existence. Maybe life becomes dreamlike, strange synchronicities or coincidences happen, or you feel like you're connected to some higher intelligence, and he'd not had that. So finally I went for death. I went, well, look, you know, we're heading for death. That's pretty mysterious. You know, what's that? And what intrigues me is we now have hundreds of thousands of reports from people who've clinically died, you know, brain dead. Yet modern medicine's brought them back, and they've told these amazing stories about meeting their loved ones and meeting a being of light and reviewing their lives. And you could tell it was getting a bit much. And he said with some relief, oh, terribly sorry, I've loved talking to you, but this is my stop. I need to get off. And off he went. Delightful young man. And it was at that point that I noticed the guy who was sitting in the chair in front. I could just see the back of the chair, so I could see him through the gap. And he looked rough. His face was covered in tattoos, and he looked unconscious. Drunk, I would have guessed. But at this point, he turned his head in my direction a little and opened one eye and said, in a voice I'll remember forever, "You just blew my fucking mind." Closed his eyes again and went back unconscious. Now, what I love about that story is I'm like the guy with the tattoos. It blows my mind. You probably are too, otherwise you probably wouldn't be listening to this chapter in my pod book. But not everyone. Not everyone's like that. For me, a sense of the mysterious is an everyday experience. I would start nearly all of my lectures by going, wow, what is this that we're in? And you could feel this wave of shifting awareness in the whole room as people went, oh yeah. People went from, yeah, I know what's going on, yep, this is it, and into, oh yeah, actually, this is really mysterious, this being human, isn't it? And I do that for the same reason that I did it with the young man on the train, because it opens up the system, it shifts the state, and you go from a closed system to this openness to new possibilities. It's very humbling. For me, it's like I'm aware of the limits of my sensing and making sense, that I could be wrong, and there is undoubtedly so much that I'm missing. And that shift into being conscious of the mysterious, for me, is where all of the philosophy starts. And it's also a very characteristic of that awakening. Often people have it for the first time, where they are busy working, doing their lives, all of their worries and concerns, and I take those seriously. I'm not belittling them. But then for some reason, and it could be dramatic, it could be illness, it could be falling in love, it could be having a baby, it could be just the sun on your back. And suddenly, poof, you're in this other state and you don't know, actually. It's profoundly mysterious. And what I want to suggest is that's a very high level of emergence. That's a very emergent state of the psyche. When we do that, we're waking up. We've been acculturated into a set of ideas, our cultural conditioning. We think this is the way it is, and then we realize, yeah, not necessarily. And then you're out, and you're able to start to ideate in new, creative ways. Now, it's not that you're not ideating at all, or there's no categories with which you're discerning things. That would be disastrous. That would be like terrible Alzheimer's. You'd be utterly lost. It's rather that you have still got all of your understanding, all of your making sense. You don't suddenly lost. You don't know who you are and where you're going, or none of that. In fact, that needs to be there. Because that's that feeling of, yeah, I'm safe. I know, I'm not losing my instincts for how to walk or where I am or my orientation. That allows the sense of the mysterious to be wonder. If you lose that, if you don't feel safe, if you feel vulnerable, then a sense of the mysterious isn't wonder. It becomes terror. And I need to be careful when I deal with mystery with people, because most people get wonder, some people get terror, and then others, like the man on the train, just like, well, they don't get it at all. So you can see that in what I did with the young man on the train. I used ideas to point to the mysterious. So put things in a different context. So here's your life, you're living your life, there's a lot going on for all of us. You've got your work, you've got your family, you've got your understanding of what this is, and then you go, what's that in the context of there being billions and billions and billions of galaxies full of billions and billions and billions of stars? And then that shift opens up, oh yeah, and that. So now this is in a new context, and it's now mysterious. It's now going, yeah, hang on, is there more here than I've been thinking? Or this is all empty space, same thing. Or people reporting what happens after they die, same thing. In this new context, whoa. So it's not that there's an absence of ideas. It's that you are actually seeing with a very emergent idea. You are seeing that your making sense is limited. And that opens up the possibility of making sense in new ways. And that's not necessarily, you don't necessarily jump straight to the new way. It may be just like, okay, it's open-ended. So for me, the sense of the mysterious and the making sense are what I would call paralogical complementaries. I'll have a whole chapter on what I mean by paralogical, but it's both and, not either or. It's not, well, either you've got to, you know how to make sense and you or it's the mystery. No, I don't think it is that. I think they go together, and it's about where you're putting your attention. So even when I step right into the mystery and have that overwhelming sense of the numinous nature of all I don't know, if my daughter shouts out for my help, I'm going to kick straight back into, I know who I am, I'm her father, I'm going to take care of her, I'm going to do this, That's just been on hold. I've been allowing my attention to go to the mysterious. Now I need to come back to what I know. And these are complementary. So that the mysterious is absolutely integral to the process of philosophy for me. Well, the whole process of life, but particularly for that. This is just an aside, but it's interesting. I find it fascinating that we, human beings, have taught chimps and various other primates to speak with sign language. And they can do it. So you can have conversations, ask them questions, and so forth. But no primate has ever asked a question back to a human being. Isn't that fascinating? We ask questions. That's what we do. And it's a very emergent quality. Which is why the young man on the train, he was very concerned with a certain time of his life. He wasn't going to be concerned at this stage with asking big questions about the mysterious nature of life. Fair enough. Good for him. He didn't need to do that. But that's another emergent level that he may well arrive at as he gets older. So this deep making sense that I'm interested in, you're probably interested in, is optional. You don't have to do it. He was getting through without it just fine. You can get through with your cultural conditioning the whole time. Most people do. They don't even know they've got their cultural conditioning. They just think that's the way the world is. The way they're ideating it is the way it is. It's a very emergent jump when you go, is it? Is it the way it is? Maybe. Maybe not. And that opens up mystery, the mysterious. So I think it's absolutely fine that some people are drawn to these deep questions and others not. We're all drawn to different things. That's fine. That's all to do with our individual nature, how our particular soul evolution is working out, and so forth. But here's what I don't like, I guess, or feels wrong to me, and is what I want to share in this chapter. That is when the idea that you can just be in the mystery is elevated to be a kind of spiritual virtue, so that the desire to make sense of existence in a deep way is dismissed as, oh, I get this a lot from spiritual folks, you're just in your head, or you just stop with your ideas and just come into the mystery, and that's all you need. And that's really, it's coming into the mystery is a lovely thing. But it's not it. It's not like that's where you should be. It's one of the things we can do. And, sometimes the retreat into not knowing is a kind of just a laziness. Oh, nobody knows. I can't be bothered to ask those questions. They're not going to get me anywhere. Fair enough. You don't need to ask those questions, but don't elevate it into some spiritual virtue. Don't go, look, I'm intellectually lazy, or I'm not interested, or that's not my thing, all of which are fine, but don't elevate it. Because the fact that physicists have gone, I want to understand quantum physics, or the nature of the stars, or that theologians go, I want to understand the nature of God, or all the things in between. These are what have propelled human culture forward. So for me, it's like, yeah, I want to step into that mystery, and there is a certain knowing that happens, a certain experience, let's say. You can capture it with, people often describe it as, you just come in and you don't know what it is, but you know that it is. It just is. And what's happening there is interesting. If I do it, let me just do it. So you put your all your higher ideation, you kind of just go, okay, I'm not going to pay that attention. And you come into a very simpler state. You've still got all of your instinctual categorizations happening. You can't turn those off. But you don't know what it is on that higher, more ideational level. And that's a very good state to come into if you want to pay attention to the isness, the field of being, that oneness of being. And it's a very powerful, it's a very emergent experience. You've learned to put the higher ideation on hold. Like I said before, if someone calls for your help, it's going to turn back on. Hasn't gone anywhere. But you've just put it, you're not paying attention, you've put it on hold. It allows you to come into this state where you're going, oh yeah, I'm open to what this could be. I've just got my instinctual ideation, I'm just experiencing my senses. And with that, I can go, oh, look, there's a oneness. I don't even need to say these things to myself. It just happens. It just is. Everything is. There's an isness. So it's a great way of coming into that state of communion. And then when you come into that state of communion, of course, it can connect you with, you're conscious of the ground, but it can connect you with the sky. It can connect you with the individual supersystem, and suddenly you're having a full-on mystical experience. So I know why people do it. I do it. But it's not some return to some natural state in which you just know directly all of that stuff. It's actually a very emergent state. It's not return to childhood wonder. Childhood wonder is before ideational conditioning. So with kids, like with adults, if they feel instinctively safe, then they can be in a state of wonder, of not knowing. If they feel instinctively unsafe, they will be frightened. But they haven't got the ideas yet, which means they're open to anything. As they develop ideas, you can say, oh, look, there's a guy who comes down the chimney at Christmas and brings you gifts, and they'll go, okay. They won't go, that's not very plausible, is it? That will come later. So what's happening with you is not a return to that state. You're not a child anyway. You can be childlike for a bit, perhaps, but you need to be. If you actually became like a child, you need someone to look after you. But what you can do is an emergent state. So you've gone through the process, you've got of conditioning, you have all of these conventional ideas. Maybe you've learnt to doubt those, you've evolved along them. Now you've got a whole load of new ideas. But even those you can then go, look, put it all on hold. Put the whole thing on hold. You're just in this mystery. But it's not returned to anything. That's a very emergent state to come into. And from it, you can see things. Like the oneness of being. But you will need to return to your ideas. You will need to carry on with all the things you need to do to keep yourself alive. And if you're inquisitive like I am, you will also need to return to the deeper philosophical questions about what does it mean to be alive, and what should I do with my life, and what is death, and all of the other things which interest people like me. So what I'm saying here is, look, the mystery is really important, but it's not in opposition to the making sense. They come together. You can get better and better at making sense the more you are aware of how mysterious things are. And finding things mysterious does not negate the making sense. It actually builds on it so that they're working together the whole time. And I completely understand that not everyone is drawn to making sense in the way that I am, because we all play different roles in life and we all get attracted to different things. But let's not elevate not knowing into some spiritual virtue in itself, because it's a game. Because you can't live in it. You just can't. So see it for what it is, which is a really beautiful part of the evolution of psyche, that you can come into these beautiful states of oneness of being, for instance, like I just outlined. Okay. Well, I guess we should end by just having a few moments together in the mysterious. And the mystery that, you and I are connecting like this. In one way, it's very simple and obvious. I'm a human being, you're a human being. I'm recording this, you're listening to this. We've got all this amazing technology that I don't understand between us that enables it to happen. But what you're connecting with is my psyche. You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it, you can sense it. And we're connecting, in this case, across time as well. Because I'm recording this, obviously, in your past, and you're listening in my future. And here we are on this amazing journey in which we can do our best to make sense of it in the best way we can, whilst never losing that profound sense of how mysterious it is. And when we have those two, it's like a dance. For me. Yeah, Albert Einstein once said that he felt like a little boy who hadn't learned to read yet in a library, looking at all the books and knowing that the strange signs in the books all meant something and that they were significant. He just didn't know what they meant. And I feel like that, just surrounded by this, wow, I'm glimpsing some bit of this. And every time I feel like I see a bit more, that's why I'm in love with the philosophy I'm sharing. I see a bit more, and it's a rush. That's why I want to share it, just in case someone else gets the rush. But it never negates how mysterious it is. In fact, if anything, it just pushes the mystery onwards. So that constantly, like the fantastic guy with the tattoos in the chair in front of me on the train, it just blows your mind. In the next chapter, I want to explore how our ancestors understood the universe in terms of spirits and gods and goddesses. And I want to look at how that understanding has evolved, and also how the very reality they are attempting to understand has evolved.